Step into the light where the wild ones roam, where the heart speaks loud, calling this place home. We break the rules, we paint the sky, ridiculously you. We were born to fly. Ooh, it's ridiculously you.
Welcome to the Ridiculously You podcast, where we get real and raw and a little ridiculous. This is the space where we talk about what it actually takes to love yourself out loud, set bold boundaries, and live a life that is wildly, unapologetically yours. On today's show, we have Sean Young, and we are going to pop right into it. Sean is a U.S. Army combat vet. And we're going to get into a little bit of how spirituality has played a role in his life in many different ways. And we're going to get right into it because I was like, what do I want to ask you about spirituality and like being a U.S. Army combat vet? And you have all of these stories. And I'm like, how did that all come together? So here's what I want to know about that is, did this spiritual aspect of you, was that living inside you before you went to war? Were you like a highly spiritual, intuitive being before war happened, before you got into the army, before all of that? Has that always played a big role in your life?
Actually, no. I was raised in many different religions where religion was tells you, you have to follow a strict guideline of what you believe in, right? Um, and they would deem some of the practices I use now as witchcraft or what have you. And so no, it really wasn't. I was very much like what you would consider a Bible thumper before I joined the army. And I joined the army and I met a vast uh, array of people from different backgrounds, different cultures, and different races, religions, all that stuff. And I started trying to find myself, and I started trying to find where I fit in. And I studied every religion from Catholicism to Satanism to Buddhism and to paganism, and I found my place in paganism, and I felt that's where life life led me to. And when I was in war, in Afghanistan, the times that I went, I've had many experiences where I'm like, I shouldn't be alive. And
Mm.
some of the situations that I was in, and something greater than myself protected me and kept me close. And I came home pretty much unscathed. And after I got out of the army and after I got into my mental health and addiction recovery, I started finding my place in spiritualism. And I think the most beautiful thing about how I practice is I take everything, take things from what I've learned and I apply them to my life. And so that it's not so much as I'm dedicating or subscribing to one religion or one practice. I gather everything and I apply it to my life. And I feel like I am a better human because of it.
So what do you think the difference, like to you, what's the difference between being a spiritual person and spiritualism and religion? Because you grew up in a religion, you grew up like I'm imagining believing there's a God, believing, those kinds of things. So tell me what like the difference is in your mind.
The difference in my mind. Okay, so if we're going to the Bible and like the Dead Sea Scrolls, right?
Yeah.
There's a passage that says, "You look under a rock, and there I am. You split a piece of wood, and I'm there also." And it also talks about how the church is not a building, but a mindset, right? Like an
Mm.
inner peace. And for me, that's what I found it to be now. I found it to be that my higher power, that the essence that I draw is from everywhere. I can go outside and I can put my feet in grass and I can ground, and there I am, right? And there I find my higher power. I can be in a thunderstorm like I was last night and drive, and I can find my higher power because that's where he is. It's not connected to a building. It's not connected to a book. It's connected to the essence of that higher power. And so for me, I have this belief that heaven and hell is created within ourselves.
Mm.
Not It's not a physical location, right? That we can create our own heaven, but we can also in turn create our own hell.
Yeah, for sure. So, how far into being in Afghanistan, how many times did you go over there? It seemed like you said multiple times.
4 times.
4 times. Wow. So you went over there 4 times. How far into going over there 4 times do you feel like you landed on the kind of spiritualism that you practice today?
Oh goodness. My fourth time, my
The
very last
fourth time.
And there was like a lot of life circumstances, not just on that deployment, but in my life, my personal life, that led me to where I am. And it was it was a very beautiful, painful, profound moment for me because it was like parts of me were dying off and then new parts were sprouting. So that pain mixed with joy and emotion were just it was great. It was really
So
authentic.
bring us to that moment. You said there's other life circumstances. Tell us a little bit about like what's happening in your life at that moment, because I think this is like that quintessential. Most people who go out and like you've got a podcast and you're doing some leadership things to, be an example of how to be in this space, right? Most people who go and do that have had this arc where, you kind of like get to that moment where you're losing things and you're gaining things and you're figuring out who you are. So take us to that moment and share with us a little bit more, if you would, about what's happening there.
Okay, I call it the aha moment. Sometimes people call it the spiritual experience, whatever, what have you, the meet your maker moment, I guess you would say as well. And for me, I I was in this space where I was lost, completely
Mm,
lost. And I was in the midst of my addiction and I was in the midst of trying to find myself. And I had a 2-year-old daughter and
mm,
I had, left her to go to Afghanistan, not by will, but because I had to. And I left behind at the time a wife, and I started to think, and I was like, I am an absolute train wreck, right? Like me, Sean Young, the flesh is an absolute train wreck. I'm a massive drinker. I have all these mental health disorders. I know how I was raised as a kid, and I don't want to raise my child that way. So for me, I pushed my at the time wife away and I said, we need to separate because my daughter is not going to be raised the way that I was. And I want her to know that she's loved in two households and not have to see her parents fighting. And for me, that was a profound experience because I was starting to break the chains. I was
mm.
to break the cycle, right? And I was seeing the cycle start with me. That started with my father, that started with his father, and then the father beforehand. And I didn't want that to continue and perpetrate on my daughter. And for me, that was one of the many experiences in my life that was like breaking the cycle. And yes, it hurt. It hurt me and it hurt my at the time wife and it hurt people around me. And I don't want to say that I was trying to save them. I don't want to be the have the savior complex because that's not what it is. I just didn't want my child to have to suffer the way that I did.
Mm.
And so, um, for me, it was a moment of losing and a moment of gaining, like gaining the clarity to understand that I am in a cycle and a moment of losing my family, I guess you would say.
So what did that cycle look like? You talked about your dad having this cycle. Like this is a generational cycle. Like so many of us are like, okay, I saw my grandparents do this. I saw my parents do this. I feel myself getting into it. What did that cycle look like for you? And how did you knew you had to stop it because you could see the pain it was causing your 2-year-old daughter. You could see you're drifting away. But what did the cycle actually look like? A cycle's usually like this happens and this happens and this happens, and we automatically do this pattern that's not serving anyone. So what did that look like?
Traditional alcoholism, right? Like right
Mm,
off the bat, traditional alcoholism. If you think about an alcoholic father and all of the tendencies that of the early stages of he's drinking all the time. He's hiding his alcohol. He's not the nicest person. He's actually kind of mean, like right off the bat. He's not abusive, but he's mean. I mean, maybe verbally abusive, but not. It hasn't gotten to that point of being physical or anything like that. That's what it started to look like for me. And I woke up
hmm
one morning and I looked in the mirror and I saw my father staring back at me, and it scared me. absolutely terrified because it was that moment of like, I'm him. I'm turning into him. And I swore I never wanted to be that. And so I started to see those patterns and I started to see myself isolating. I started to see myself surrounding my days and even my weekends around drinking, around partying.
Mm.
And on top of that, like I was in the culture of the military where that was what we did, very much so, right? Like
Oh,
everywhere,
yeah.
alcohol is just there. Um, and so I started to see that cycle take take hold, and I started to see that cycle form in me, perpetuated by my father and all them down the line. And I knew the next steps because I was a part of that, right? Like as a child, and I didn't want to see
Yep.
that. I didn't want it to get to that.
So if any of our listeners are kind of in that moment, they're in that I can see myself going down this path that has been generational. What is the one thing that you would tell them to stop and do right now?
Be cognizant. Um, Pay attention to your actions as well as the actions that came before you and see how they align, right? See how similar they are, accept it, and start to work toward changing it.
And how did spiritualism, like that spiritual aspect of you, help you through those moments?
Oh, it was a calm. It was the calm in the storm. It was the eye of the hurricane. It was everything. I was able to sit down. Like I hadn't fully dedicated myself to like to an idea of where I'm at now, but I dedicated myself to Norse paganism, and so um, I kind of gave it all up. I believe at the time I was dedicated to like the Norse god Odin, and I
Hmm.
said Odin, like, look, I don't know where I'm going now. I have no idea, but point a path out and I'll follow it. And that's where it did. It gave me comfort. It was like I said, the eye of the storm.
Mm. So it gave you comfort. You talk a lot about intuition as well, like in your for those that are listening, what we do is we have like an intake form and we gather a whole bunch of information about our podcast guests. And one of the things that you mentioned over and over again is like your intuition and how that plays a role. So as you're like moving forward and making steps to get into addiction recovery, how did that intuition like help you know the right steps for you? Because it's one of those things where I'm like, do you know what? There's underlying principles for everyone, but your correct path is going to be your correct path. Like, and knowing how to listen to your intuition, at least like my viewpoint on it, is so absolutely critical for meeting the right people and connecting with those opportunities that will lead you to like the best, most beautiful life for you. So, how did that like intuition kind of put the key people and situations and stuff in your life for you to move forward?
Absolutely. So I had to first surrender.
Mm.
Surrender to the idea that I don't have the answers. Surrender to the idea that I I know myself, but I don't know myself. And I had to surrender to the idea that I created all these problems in my life. That was the first step. And
Mm.
the second step is really listening to gut that gut feeling that you have or that voice in the back of your head, which is intuition. Like we know that as intuition. And I feel like a lot of human beings that aren't that haven't reached that phase in their life kind of second guess that, and it leads to doubt. And so for me, listening to intuition was really pivotal, honestly, in my recovery. It's been really pivotal in the way that I operate my day-to-day life because that gut feeling tells you who you can and cannot trust. And I've definitely put myself in situations where I involved myself with people I couldn't trust and I didn't listen to my intuition. But then I started getting involved with people that I can trust, and it changed not just my surroundings, but it changed the way that I think and I operate. And it's almost like manifestation, right? Like you start trusting the intuition, you're like, yes, this is going to work out, and it does, right? And so for me, intuition has been very pivotal in my recovery because I can sit in like for me, my program started when I got to 12-step programs. And so like I was sitting in the rooms of the 12-step programs, the AAs, and I was like, this is great, but this ain't really for me, right?
Yeah.
Like I need something different. And then I would go into another space and I'm like, I really love this and I need to do this again, right? Like get into a class. So one of them for me was understanding anger. And so I got into this class called Understanding Anger, and I loved it because I started to be able to peel away that onion of who I was and why I was angry. And the fact that anger isn't the actual like it's just surface level, right? There's so much deeper than that. And that I took it again because I felt like I was missing something. And I did. I was missing something. And it was something that a key piece to that door that needed to be unlocked. And so it was just intuition is just absolutely crucial in my life.
You talked about understanding anger more. What did you learn about yourself and anger in that class, and just kind of through connecting what you learned there with your intuition and your spirituality and how that's moved forward? Because I think you're right. Like anger isn't even the emotion really. It's kind of, at least how I see it. It's like a manifestation of deeper down things that haven't been expressed. So like how did you learn about that? And tell me a little bit more just about how you feel about anger and what you learned about it. I think that's such a crucial thing, especially for men to understand, but not just men, like everyone has anger moments, but like, yeah, help us understand anger more from your viewpoint, Sean.
Okay, so in the army, everything that they do that I learned was motivated by anger. If you are on a run, like a long distance run, and you're just kind of sucking, they're like, get angry, right? So
Hmm.
I started to learn that, right? When you go on deployments, you do combat missions, they say, get angry, boom. And so you're learning how to turn that anger on, but you're not learning how to turn it off. And
Mm.
so there's just this compounded this compounded fire that just keeps getting stoked and stoked and stoked. And there's no fire extinguisher whatsoever. It's going, consistently going. And so that's one of the things that I learned is that right off the bat is that the military has used anger as a form of getting a desired result, and they don't teach you how to turn it off, and they don't teach you the inner workings of everything, like how to understand yourself. And so for me, I always ran to anger. If I was sad, I was angry. If I was happy, I was angry. Like I liken myself. Have you ever seen the Avengers, the first Avengers movie where they all got together?
Yeah.
Okay, so at the end where Bruce Banner is standing there and they say, "Hey man, you got to hulk up. You got to get angry." And he said, "The funny thing is I'm always angry." That was me. I was always
Yeah.
angry. I and secretly, I've admitted this to myself and other people. Secretly, I hated everybody around me because I was so angry because I didn't understand myself. Therefore, how can I understand other people? And
Mm.
so I started to understand that anger was really just the tip of the iceberg as to what was going on underneath. And that anger was my go-to because I could justify everything through anger, right? If I was driving, somebody pissed me off because I was, road rage incident, I would, ride up next to them. Now, I wouldn't scream out the window, but they definitely see my mouth moving. And it was because I felt upset, right? And I didn't understand that other people have a day going on, right? Like they have their own stuff, and they didn't mean to cut me off. And now I understand it so much more. And I tried to mitigate how I exercise that anger. And I also learned that anger is not a bad thing. It's not. Anger is great. It's perfect because it gives us the opportunity to do deep dives on ourselves and like why we feel angry and why it triggered us so much. But what makes it bad is what we do with that anger and
Mhm.
how we display that anger toward ourselves, toward other people. And so that class was really pivotal in understanding why I get angry and how I can change my surroundings just based off of understanding that.
Do you feel like there's ever like a good justified you should get angry time?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely. I feel like there's moments where like anger is justified, but also I believe that it is my responsibility to harness that anger and not let it, go past my surroundings. Like I'm not going to get violent with anybody. I'm
Mm.
not, because if I'm getting angry and I'm, and I'm violent towards somebody else, what does that do for me? Makes me feel
Yeah.
good. It fills that dopamine, but it doesn't do anything for me afterwards. I get that immediate pleasure. I don't get a lasting gratification from it.
Yeah, for sure. I always I always talk about how anger is one of those things that you have to be a little careful with because that's where people can get in your little emotional splash zone that don't need to be affected by your emotions or that's what I call it is the emotional splash zone. So it's like
I
are there
had
times to be angry? Sure, but additionally do you want to be the person that, causes unintentional harm or whatever?
Yeah.
What
I
have you? Like, I don't like people to be in my emotional splash zone. And so it's like, okay, is there a person, a place, a situation that's like, closed off that I can express something? Yeah, sometimes we're going to go there. Sometimes we're going to go there.
Look, there's a situation that happened very recently within the past, 4 or 5 months, and it tested my anger. Really did.
Mm,
Tested my mettle when it come to anger. And um I am really glad that I knew what I knew, because if I didn't, and I didn't actually practice what I knew, there'd be some bad things that happened. And I'm glad that that didn't happen. And I'm glad that I have this understanding of myself and boundaries, really, to be able
yeah,
to carry through that.
no kidding. I want to connect back to the spiritual conversation we've been having. I want to ask you a question.
Mhm.
Like spirituality is an interesting thing, and you've played with different aspects and studying and stuff for quite some time now. Can you tell us a little bit about how that journey has both like helped you and has it ever been like harmful?
Absolutely. So the journey in spiritualism has been helpful and hurtful. Um, we'll go the latter first. It's hard to connect with people or keep people in your life that don't understand your path,
Mm,
don't understand where you're going, and that's hard. I was talking to somebody today, and they said this is a very lonely path, and it very much is. It's one of it's a path that you have to travel alone. You can have companions with you, and you can have people with you, but it's a path that you have to go on your own. And so for me, I found myself in a place where I'm like, I'm just so alone. I feel so alone, and it hurts. But I realize that I'm not alone. That there
mm,
are hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of people that are in the same exact position that I'm in. And also, I just can't walk down the street to a random person and be like, "Hey, do you know about the Akashic records?" They're just gonna be like, "Dog, what are you talking about?" Have to,
right?
right? Like I have to be very cognizant of that. Or I can't just walk into church and be like, "Hey, let's take our shoes off and go outside and ground to Mother Earth," because they don't believe in that. So,
Yeah.
I have to be cognizant of everybody, everybody's respected, preferences, but that gives me a greater understanding of me as a person, that I don't like to push anything of what I believe on other people. And so that's something I'm really grateful for. It's been very beneficial too, in so many ways, because I'm for the first time in a very long time, I'm able to stop myself and really dive deep into why a trigger hurts so much, or why that triggered me, and connecting with that inner child, that 7-year-old Sean that was in so much pain, crying, right? And I'm also able to help other people to connect with that and like
Mm,
talk through it. And I'm able to provide space for myself. I love myself for the first time as an adult. I love myself, right? Like I no longer wake up in the morning and look in the mirror and be like, dude, I hate who you are, right? Like I love myself. I love waking up in the morning and being like, dude, your beard looks great. Like, right? Or like, man, you really helped this person by just being there. And so I love myself, and I don't I don't drink. I don't put the poison in my body, and that's a form of self-love. And I recently stopped taking my mental health medications. I went to my psychiatrist, and I said, I'm no longer taking your poison. I
hmm
am going holistic route, and she was very proud of me for standing up for myself. And so like that's a form of self-love. And it just this path is at times lonely, but at times it's just so rewarding. And it's more rewarding than it is damaging.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%, but also ha- there's been times in my life as I've gone on my spiritual journey, which looks super similar to yours. I grew up in a very strict religion. It's this or that, and if you don't do it, like huge consequences if you don't follow exactly to the letter of the law. You don't just harm yourself. It's like in that structure, it was like, and you're going to harm everyone else around you. It was a whole thing. And so, like, stepping away from that and finding spirituality for myself, I found like the people around me who, like close family members, didn't understand and felt like I was abandoning them and, having to reestablish what those relationships actually look like moving forward, which was really difficult. Did you have anything like that where the people around you didn't understand your path? Let's actually, I want to ask you this in two parts. A, how did the people in the military take your spiritual journey? Because you were studying all kinds of spirituality while you were in combat missions. I want to ask about that. And I want to ask about like close family and friends that you'd probably grown up going to church with and how they took you going on your spiritual path.
So the first question in the army, I actually was reading the Satanic Bible on my second deployment.
Hmm.
Wanted to dive into it, take a look at it, and contrary to popular belief, uh, it's about self worship and about self love, and that blew me away because I was like, "What is
That's
this?"
wild.
Yeah, yeah, because everything that I've known from the church has told me that they're bad people, and some of the best people that I know, some of the most kind-hearted people are Satanists. And so when I broke that out and people would walk by, they're like, "Dude, you're going to hell." And I'm like, well, just pump the brakes here, okay? Let's just see where we go here." And I started looking at other religions, and it really started like popping people's antennas up, and they're like, "Okay, well, this is cool." And now that I'm out of the army and I'm able to connect with some of the brothers and sisters I served with, they are on the same path. A different chapter, same book, different chapter, and that's fine. And I, if I can make myself available to them and be there as either guide or be there as a conduit, I'm more than willing to do so. And my family, goodness. So my dad is on a path. It's a path. That's what I'm gonna say. It's not
It's
mine.
a path.
It's it's a path. Um, and my sister, she's on her own path. I went to go visit my grandparents when I first moved back home from Alaska, and I saw them, and they didn't recognize me because the last time they saw me, I was clean shaven, and now I've got this full face of manly mane going on, and they said, "Oh, when was the last time you've been to church?" And I was like, "I'm just going to be honest, Grandpa. I don't believe in God. I believe in a different deity or consciousness, if you will." And my grandpa straight up looked at me and said, "You're going to hell." And I said, "Okay,
Okay.
if you believe so." I'm not going to go out and try and disrespect my grandfather. Or any of that, and I wouldn't disrespect anybody for what they believe in. For the concept that I'm going to hell because I've chosen a better lifestyle for me didn't really sit well with me. And so it's okay because my path is mine and theirs is theirs. Yeah. I've learned that treat everybody as if they're on a different chapter and let them believe what they're going to believe and don't try and correct them. Either they're going to understand or they're not. It's okay.
Yeah, I really like that approach because they have their own filters. They're in a different chapter of their life. They're on their own journey and like isn't that what we're here for too? Like in these I always call it like our little meat suits. We're kind of here to figure out, how we connect to our best self, our highest self, the higher power, the source of universe, how we figure out like our power within us? How do we communicate with others? How do we allow this freedom and autonomy and stewardship over our own selves and like allowing that for other people too, and understanding that their path and their growth and whatever is their complete stewardship, and they're going to understand it from completely different filters than we are. And just as much as I want them to allow me that, I have to allow it right back. Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's so one of the things that's interesting. So something about me, I have 7 kids. I had like 3 that were from first marriage, and like my ex had 3, and then we had one together. And so between it all, we had like 7 kids, right? And one of the things
Oh,
that I'll, like we tried to repopulate the earth single-handedly, but it's fine. But one of the things that I told my kids repeatedly that I still feel proud about this is that I wanted them to learn to think for themselves. And if they chose a religion, because I still practiced religion for a lot of their growing up years, and then started, exploring other things and stuff. But if they practiced a religion, even back then, I wanted them to choose to do it because they thought it was right for them, not because that was the traditional thing to do. If they chose a political stance, I wanted them to do it because they chose to do it and not because, you know, generations have all voted this way and we believe this is the way to do it. I didn't want them to do that. And so, like, when they were teenagers, we would do like lots of study of different sides and have little discussions about it and stuff, and tried to open that up. And now, as they're all adults now, my kids are grown. And as they're adults now, they will remind me frequently when we have differences of opinion. They'll be like, remember how you wanted us to be free thinking people who believe different things? This is what that looks like. And I'm like, you're right. And I'm really proud of you for explaining that and reminding me of
yeah,
that.
I do the same with my daughter. She's actually, so her mom has custody of her, but I get a lot of time with her, and this is one of the times that she's on
Yeah.
my couch right now watching
Oh,
wrestling.
awesome.
But she's old enough to understand like right from wrong, and she'll ask questions. And what I try to give her is you treat everybody with respect and dignity. It doesn't matter who they are. It doesn't matter if they're your worst enemy. It doesn't matter if they're your best friend. You treat them with respect and dignity because that's at a base level what every human deserves. And it doesn't matter, after that or past that. You treat everybody with respect and dignity, and it's going to come back tenfold. Look, when I was in the army and I was a leader, I used to get harassed so much because I would treat my soldiers with respect and dignity. I had this concept that they're humans first, and then they become, they're soldiers. So they have a whole
Mm,
set of feelings and emotions that they're dealing with. They have a whole life outside of the office that I don't know about, right? Like I know the names, I know the structure of their family, I know, a general idea of their household setup, but like they have a whole different layer of things going on that I don't comprehend. So if I treat them with respect and dignity, A, they're going to want to come to work. B,
yeah.
they're going to enjoy being at work. And C, they're going to trust me so that they know, that if this man leads me into war, I'm coming back home and I'm going to work 10 times harder for
Mm. Okay, I'm going to ask you a series of 3 questions
him. Oh boy.
where I want you to give just like one piece of advice. Okay.
All right.
I want you to give one piece of advice to somebody who is going to join the military. I have a Navy kid who is also off on disability with stuff. What's your one piece of advice? Somebody's going into the office, they're going to go, they're doing the thing. They're going to sign up for whatever branch of military they've decided. Your one piece of advice for them.
Do research. Do research on all the branches before you commit to one,
Hmm.
because you want one branch can offer X, Y, and Z. The other one can offer a little bit less, but you might have a better experience. Do your research and you choose for yourself. Don't do it because you had family that were in a certain branch.
Mm. What's your one piece of advice for somebody who is leaving religion? They're like, this structure of religion isn't working for me. I want to go explore my own path. Your one piece of advice for somebody leaving religion.
Be open minded. completely open-minded and with an open heart. Live your life that way. Open mind, open heart, because you may encounter something that is completely bigger than your understanding and your capacity to understand. So lead with open heart and open mind.
Love that. And your last one is, what's your one piece of advice for somebody who is angry at the world and wants to figure out how to like themselves again and maybe get to that self-love portion? They don't even like themselves yet, but we want to make that path to get all the way to self-love. One piece of advice for that person.
Don't be afraid to open up and be emotional. It's okay. Um, that is the only way forward, is to open up, and it's scary, and you know, sometimes it's hard to trust people with that feeling and emotion, but there are people in the world that look out for our best interest and don't want to hurt us. So open up. It's okay.
Mm, great advice. Now, this is the Ridiculous You podcast. So, what would you say is the most ridiculous part of you?
Hmm. Um, after this last relationship ended, well, while I was in this last relationship, I wanted a tattoo dedicated to my favorite wrestler who passed away a few years ago.
Hmm.
And it's very crazy out there. Just a guy that I connected with, and I was like, I love you so much. Uh, and when he passed away, it had a real big impact on me as an adult, which is crazy to think. But I wanted this tattoo, and it was very simple, and um, but it meant a lot, and there was a lot of layers behind it. And after this, when I was in the last relationship, she said, "No, you're not going to do it." And so I kind of was like, "Okay, fine." And when I broke up with her, the first thing I went and did was get that tattoo.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and I sat in the tattoo shop and I explained what it meant, and the tattoo artist was like, "That is awesome." And it's in a visible place, and I can show you.
So I'm like, can you show us? I want to see.
Okay.
Okay, explain it to us. What
Okay.
does it mean to you?
So this is a Norse pagan or a Norse rune, right?
Yeah.
And so on the left side it's heal,
Mm.
and on the right side is hurt. And when you asked me earlier before we hit record about hurt and heal, this is what I wanted to share with you.
Oh, wow.
So these hurt and heal was on his gloves that he wore every night. And he had a character that was called the Fiend. It was like a demonic character, and he would like look at his hands and determine how he was going to interact with this person. And so that meant a lot to me, but there was something much deeper than that under the surface. And if you look at energy and how it flows through your body, the left side is the healing side, the right side is the hurt side, the painful side. If you put your hands together and you work with chi, or you work with, your life force energy, it flows from your left into your right. And so the hurt side of me is fed by the healing side, which in turn creates healing, and then it just creates this circle. And so for me is just such a beautiful thing. And as a healer myself, um I use my left and my right side all, if I'm working sending energy to somebody, it's always on my left side, and I can feel my, like, talking about it, I can feel the energy in my hand right now. And then my receiving side on the other side of that person is the receiving side there, the hurt. So I'm taking the healing, sending it through them, receiving their hurt out of their body.
That is so cool. So how long had you been broken up before you went and got this tattoo?
Maybe a few days.
A few days. You were like, and we're going.
I had priorities, okay? I had to go get another vehicle because the other vehicle was in her name. So I had to go get another vehicle. And as soon as I did that, I was like, I'm going, and we're going to get this tattoo done.
And how did it feel when it was done? Like it seems like you still have a pretty emotional connection to it. So like you got it
Oh,
done and you felt what?
I felt different. Like not much different, not like I had a stamp of approval, but more so of like, now this is my responsibility to carry it, uh,
Mm.
and to hold it and harness it. And I chose the Norse runes because they, connect so deeply with me, and I work with runes and do rune readings and stuff like that. And so it was only natural for that to, take part in this artwork.
That is so cool. Do you have any, I'm just curious, do you have any ancestry that's more like in that Nordic region?
Yes, I actually did a 23andMe, and I had no idea what was going to come up with. I knew like the Irish side of me because my beard shows red in the sun,
Yeah.
and I knew English, but I had no idea that Scandinavian would pop up. And that was during I found this out last Christmas.
Oh,
And
cool.
so I was already rooted in my beliefs, and then I found out that I am Scandinavian. So that was pretty cool.
Did it happen to tell you like what country or anything, or it just kind of said Scandinavian in general?
It said more of Iceland, which I've had a draw to go to Iceland. Um, the more prominent side of my ancestry comes from Ireland and England, just because of some of the history between the two. But then there's like a 23% uh, from from the Scandinavian islands, and predominantly Iceland. So I'm just really excited because like I feel like I'm finally connected with my ancestors and my roots.
That's so exciting. I swear I knew you were going to say Iceland because I have my ancestry is also England and Iceland. Like the first people who ever came to America from Iceland are like my ancestors. And so like we
Wow.
have a big like Icelandic history. So anyway, if you ever get excited about Icelandic history, they have really fun things around Christmas time. They have like these, oh gosh, what are they called? The Yule lads. Learn more about the Yule lads at Christmas time. They're freaking rad. Instead of like Santa Claus, they have like these Yule guys that go around and they're named really weird things. There's like door sniffer and pot licker and like Yule cat. Yule cat goes and like steals your stuff. So like if you want to get into some fun stuff this Christmas, look into the Yule lads.
Well, so one of the crazy things, I got really inspired by Norse paganism through watching Vikings.
Yeah.
And I fell in love with the way of life that was depicted, and I fell in love with the fact that they took care of their family and their community, and any outsiders, they took care of them until they were stabbed back. And that's very much how I live my life, how I've always lived my life. I take care of my household, my community, and anybody that comes to my door. And for me, that was like really prominent. And I started watching it when I was in the army, and I was like, man, when I get out, I want to look like Ragnar, right? Like that
Yeah.
is my goal. I had
Let's
hair
do
at
it.
the time. I don't
Yeah.
have hair at the time, now, but I had hair at the time, and it was very thin. And I tried to do it in the braid, and it just wouldn't stay. And finally, I just cut it all off. And somebody was like, you look like old Ragnar now. And I was like, dude, yes, I do. So
You're like, yeah.
yeah, I do. This is great.
That's so fun. Well, I love that. I love that you found like that connection to like Odin and that kind of a framework for you before you even knew. It's like that's coming home to who you've always been and like a giant piece of you that you probably didn't even know was connected. And so like
What's
how fun to just see that alignment come into play. And that's one of those times where I go back to like that intuition and that connectedness. Like you can kind of see those pieces coming together to bring together pieces of who you've always been and where your people are from and how you're going to express yourself here. I think
I
it's so
had
cool.
I've had these moments where I've questioned what I believed in, and every single time, there's been a profound experience that's happened. The first one was when I was driving to Alaska from North Carolina. I was getting stationed up there, and I was like, I don't even know if this is what I believe in, and I didn't even ask
Yeah.
for a sign. I just said I don't know if this is what I believe in, and I got to the border of Canada and Alaska, and when I crossed into Alaska, there was just ravens everywhere. I was like, there is no way that I can deny this. And then a few years later, when I started my recovery and I started getting into my journey, once again, I was driving. I was like, I don't know if this is what I believe in anymore. And I was on this road going to a meeting, and I'm sitting there at this stoplight, and I look over, and there's a raven on the sidewalk. Just he shouldn't have been there, but he was there, and he was locked eyes with me. And I looked when the light turned green, and I kept going. Um, I looked in my rear view, and I could see his head turning, following my car. And
Mm.
to me, that was like confirmation and affirmation, like this is where I need to be. And last year I had another instance where I was like, I just don't know. And I stepped outside to go on a drive somewhere, and I looked up and I got this tree right outside my office right here, huge tree, and it was dead, barren. And there had to have been 9 to 10 different ravens sitting in the tree during wintertime in the dead of cold. And I was like, okay, I'm done asking. I'm done questioning because like now it's further confirmation that I'm where I need to be.
So I always say God speaks to you in the language you understand. So he sent you ravens. What did that mean to you?
Hmm. So
What did that
raven
symbolize for you?
so ravens are very big in the Norse culture.
Mm-hmm.
Hugin and Munnin, they are two messengers from Odin, and one sees everything, and the other one's a messenger. And so they fly side by side. They collect information, come back to Odin, and talk to him, and then he does with it what he will. And for me, those ravens were more so like confirmation that I needed to be where I am at, and when it's time to leave, the ravens will tell me where to go.
That's so great. Because it's like I said, God speaks to you in the language you understand. You didn't get owls, you didn't get caterpillars, you didn't get a dragonfly. You didn't get like, no, it had to be ravens for you to go, oh, okay, no, real.
Yeah.
Real. That's our thing. That's our thing.
Yes, and the crazy thing is side note, I haven't told anybody this, but I'm kind of in the talking phase with somebody. And one of the things that I recognized about her is she wears this necklace, this pendant that uh, has Yggdrasil on it, and then
Hmm.
on either side of it are ravens.
You're like, what?
I was like, what is happening? And so I told her that, and I was like, you know, I'm very connected to ravens, and she was like, ravens are my favorite bird. Shut
Wild.
up. Shut up. like, come on. Come on. Let's this is too much. This is crazy.
Yeah, I love those like little signs and synchronicities that just like help confirm you're on the path. I think they're so important to pay attention to. At least for myself, that's been a big thing for me. Like I just made this huge move to Texas and kind of did a big leap of faith, and there was like so many freaking signs along the way that like yes is the path, yes is the good, yes it's like all the right things for you, and all those little things just help you go okay.
Yeah.
This
And when
this feels good.
and I find when you're connected, like where you need to be, or you're connected with the people you need to be around, everything flows so much easier, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
there's no fight. I mean, there are small little internal battles, but there's no fight, right? When you are on that path and you're walking that path, everything comes easier, and things line up, and the alignment's there, and things you didn't even know you needed show up. And it's crazy, right? Like the situation that I was, with the woman I'm talking to now. I was on the I was literally like about to give up on dating websites because I was like, this is not healthy for me, and it's not healthy for my mental health. And I
Yeah.
went to shut them all down, and I was on the very last profile, and her message popped up 2 hours 2 hours after I made the statement that, hey, I'm shutting my profiles down. I said that 2 hours prior. And at that moment, at the exact moment, is when she sent the message. And I didn't see it for 2 hours later.
Wow.
Yes. And so for me, that was like another sign of like, hey man, don't give up. You just gotta be patient. So I'm practicing patience now, and it's great.
Mm. I love the last thing you said, which is don't give up. Don't give up. Just be patient. This conversation of alignment. I think that's a good place to kind of wrap up what we're discussing today with these ideas. I love everything that you shared with us. Um, for our next guest, this is what I want to ask you too. This is the last thing I want to ask you, and then we're going to kind of wrap up for today. Um, If you wanted to ask a question of our next guest, what do you think I should ask them that everyone would want to know?
Mm, oh, I've never been asked that before. That's a good question. The next guest, I would ask, why now? Just simple why now?
Okay. I'm going to be asking our next guest, why now?
That's intuitively led. I
I
don't know
could
what,
see that.
but that was coming from here to here, and I was like, yep, that's the question that they need to hear.
Okay. Next guest is going to get a why now question from Sean Young. Sean, you are just such a beautiful example of the journey we're on here on earth, really. Like our experiences here, it's like learning about anger and emotions and learning about spirituality and what it's like in a box and out of a box and learning your intuition and learning about, leaning into those ridiculous parts of yourself. Where can people follow you more and learn more about what you do?
Absolutely. My podcast, I stream everywhere you can find podcasts. My show is called Recover Out Loud, and it's with an orange and blue logo. It's pretty cool. I didn't come up with it. AI did. Um, on Facebook, Sean Young, you can find me there. You can find me on Instagram or on TikTok at the Sober Shaman Sean. And yeah, I mean, if you Google my name, you're probably going to come up with the female actress Sean Young. Yeah.
Yeah. So find Recover Out Loud podcast, find Sean Young on Facebook, all the places. You're on the tweeters or whatever that is now,
I no,
X a little
I try
bit.
to stay away from that
You're
place.
gonna stay away
It's
from that
just
one?
nasty. There are some just nasty human beings on there, and I don't want to subject myself to that.
That's fair. You did say you were on TikTok though.
I do have a Twitter or an X account at Recover Out Loud, but
You're not
I'm
gonna see too much
away from
there.
that. But yeah, I do have. I'm pretty responsive on all of my social medias.
Okay, cool, cool. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing with us. I appreciate your time. And with that, have a ridiculous day, everyone.
Share the spark, take it higher. Hit subscribe, bring a friend. Let the wildness never end. Tap in.